I had my favorite Keen sandals on, and they got so ruined with the mud, I just had to ditch them and get some tennis shoes from a house that was still standing. So I go to Metro Shoe Warehouse, I believe, probably a week later to get the same shoes, and they're like, we don't carry that version anymore. And I just remember sitting down in the aisle and crying. And the sweet, probably college student looked at me and said, "Ma'am, can I help you? Like, you're crying now at this point." And I just said, "No, please leave me alone," because I lost control even over my shoes. And so knowing those situations are what our kids are dealing with not a fully developed brain, not the resources that I have, it just contributes to why we have to keep doing this for kids. Yeah, so I think the hardest thing about any type of trauma, which was also, my personal story, is that you can always prepare for things, and some things just happen, and they happen out of the ordinary when you don't expect it. Chronic trauma is different than acute trauma, and mine was obviously a little bit different than chronic trauma. But what really happens is the loss of control, the loss of power in your life. And when you lose that control, like I lost through the tornado taking it away from me, is you want to reestablish safety. And so when I started to have those moments of feeling out of control, like when I couldn't get the milk, because I couldn't go to the store to get milk for my son, and the lack of control that I had as a parent, I could not give my son what he needed because I was struggling with my own trauma. That was hard. And those events and those reminders and those moments of how do I regain control for myself? But I was a 30-year-old, so I had a fully developed brain at this point with a master's degree. I knew that I could get there eventually. Kids don't always understand that. They don't know how to get there. So my son is in 3rd grade this year, and 3rd grade was the age that 7 of our kids were when they died at Plaza. So it's been a very surreal year for me, knowing that 7 of my families didn't see their sons or daughters go past what my son is now. So it makes it very realistic for me. And to think about if my son were to be in a school right now and have 7 of his friends die, that's my trauma, that's my world. But I also look at when my kids have a hard moment at school, how I don't run in and rescue them, because I also don't believe in that. But when I can wrap around them and at the end of the day hold them and hug them and say, "You're so loved and you're so cared for. I can't take your problems away." Every moment that I'm afforded the opportunity to have that conversation, I'm reminded not every kid gets to go home to that. And that is hard, but it also reminds me of why we do this, because every kid deserves success, whatever that looks like. And so how do we help all kids find that success? And it's very interesting to look back at my 3-year-old and my 18-month-old to ask myself, were they affected by this tornado? Absolutely, because their mom was. The mom they had on May 19th is not the mom they had on May 20th and for the rest of their life. They actually didn't know about it until last year. And we just made the decision that we really didn't talk much about it. And we talked about it with them last year. And there was a little bit of anxiety for my kids. "You mean the kids died in your school while you were there?" And so just watching them process that has been difficult. My 1st grader has been more concerned about storms this year than ever. I don't know if that's because he now knows or if there's something else that he's just now aware of, what it is. But kids absolutely take in every information, whether it's by words or by actions, and they process it differently, and they process it uniquely from each other, but then also differently than adults. I say what's hard is not always impossible, and we can do it, and it can be hard, but it can be worth it, because if you see that one kid cross that stage and move on to whatever opportunity. Right now it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and teachers are posting on their social media, on their Facebook and stuff, "If I taught you, tell me where you're at, what you're doing." I'm not always going to see what you get to do, especially our elementary kiddos. Those teachers may not know what happens to those kids, but they're investing in the possibility, the potential. I am going to risk it because it's worth it. And so finding that worth and that value. We probably won't see the significant change we would love to, and that's okay. But if you take it down to the one kid at a time level, I think that's where you find your value and you find your change, to know that they finished this year, or they're working on this project, and you can see change. But to know that some days it'll be very unseen.